No, really long.
Now you are.
I always get nervous when we go live. I don't know what to say. I freeze up.
I don't have any idea what to say. There's no script.
Then let's stop now. Let's just stop before it gets any further.
Yeah, this is the best tech video ever. 3 minutes of rambling.
There you go.
Yeah.
And we have a mod tonight.
Yeah. This is George.
George the mod. Oh, yeah, he's a mod, but he's our live mod. Then we've got our always mods, Fubar and
John Wilbur.
John Wilbur.
Hey, I met John Wilbur bought a membership this past week.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. And he was like, "Oh man, thanks for working with Tony. This is great. I didn't know the HRA was even around anymore." And I'm like,
"Yeah,
cool. Thanks,
well,
John."
And we're gonna get the whole because the NHR is done. NHR is done.
Yeah. You think so? Huh?
Oh yeah, they're swirling the toilet.
I think they're a necessary evil, right? They got to be there for the professional level stuff.
Yeah, no, that's all over. I think of the NHRA as the stuff that's actually the meat that's in the bowl, and like the RHRA is like the paper covering it, and I see the whole thing going like this, because it's time for the grassroots guys to come up.
Hell yeah, that's exactly where we started from.
That's it.
And there's no reason why we can't take it back.
Yeah.
The only reason we don't run Top Fuel as grassroots is because
the corporate's got
they don't let us, right?
When I was running Top Fuel, it cost us $1,000 a run, okay, which was okay because it sounds like a lot of money. $1,000 pass sounds like a lot of money, but it actually wasn't because we could match race. So we'd go out to a match race and we'd make 2 runs, let's say, and we'd get paid $5,000 for those 2 runs, right? So I left $3,000 left over.
Right, so you made a little money.
So we ended up, and then you could take that and go to a national event. Then you qualify, let's say first time loser money at a national event was like $6,500 back then, $7,000. So you'd make 4 runs, and you'd still end up with a profit. Like you could devote your full time to the car.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was funny too because the way it was structured back then, the payout was like first round loser, you could actually go home and make money. But if you lost in the second round, it cost you money. it was bad. It was a bad deal. But then like the corporates really got involved, and the NHR was just like, you know what? Let the big guys just run whatever. How many pumps? How many mags? How many gallons? You want to just dump through these fucking motors, knock yourself up.
Endless money, the whole 9.
Right. So it went from $1,000 a run to $5,000 a run to $20,000 a run in like no time at all, and that flushed all of us, working guys out of it.
Right. Yeah.
It's time for us to come back.
It is time for us to come back. It's been time for us to come back, and that was the whole idea behind when I did the AHRA. It was like bring it back to the sportsman level. That if you look at it from a big picture, out of all the sports, right? You got baseball, basketball, football, all that stuff. All the ball sports.
Those sports only take 1 ball.
Right, they take 1 ball, but they also the minor league stuff you don't really ever hear about, right?
No.
And drag racing started minor league only is really how you look at it. Mm-hmm. And there's no reason why you can't go back to the minor league. The only difference is leave all the big corporate dollars at home. And it's not that we don't want sponsorships, but we want participation. Right.
Well, you think drag racing, right? Like, okay, so there are legends like Carl that's won everything under the sun, right? Then you have people like Jungle, right? Jungle Jim.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize, like, one of the most famous names in the history of the sport. And he only won 1 NHRA national event.
Jungle was the best showman there ever was.
He was a great match racer, right? So, but I think that's where it's going to go back to. And if you want to see the future of drag racing, the true future of professional drag racing, just look what they're doing on the Discovery Channel, because that is the future of professional drag racing.
Yeah, the regular guy.
The regular guy, no clocks. Nobody cares what times are.
Yeah.
Times are for us. Times are for gearheads. You know what I'm saying? But for the spectator, they don't give a shit what number pops up on the board.
They want to see a win light. That's all they need.
They want to see a win light.
Yeah.
Right? So and that's where it's going.
Well, and I've said it from the beginning. What's funny is where are the stands at? The stands
always on the start line.
Exactly. So no one cares about the real finish without just the light to tell you who wins. That's all you need. And all the excitement, the build up, the release, all the whole 9 yards is right there on the line.
For the spectator, drag racing is about a spectacle of automotive violence.
Right.
And the violence all happens on the starting line.
Right. Exactly.
That's what they pay money to see.
And how violent can it get? Does it get violent after the launch? Before the launch? That's where the showmanship, the dry hop, all the stuff that's went away. I actually have a sign at every track that says burnouts through the lights, dry hops, and wheel stands are encouraged.
I always, whenever I ran my fuel car, the Alton, I always did like 3 or 4 dry hops. My favorite was with the glue, because when you whap it, go whoop, and the back of the car would just hop off the
Just
ground.
jump, yeah.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing.
Well, we got to get back to tonight's tech.
Today
program.
we're talking tech. We're on tech, George. You know what? We've been ignoring our people over here. Guys, everybody who checked in and said hello.
I didn't want to interrupt.
I'm so sorry. Hello, everybody. I usually say hi as to
as
the
they show
individuals
up.
as they show up. And I'm so sorry. I was being rude. Hello, everybody.
So
Okay.
Last week we left off. We were talking about this week. We were going to do detonation, timing curve, fuel curve, and plug readings.
Detonation is something I know a lot. I know too much about detonation.
That's good, because I know enough about detonation that like squeeze head gaskets out, but that's about the extent of it. I know that, the higher the octane the fuel, the slower it burns, that whole 9 yards, but it doesn't go much more beyond. Like quench, I'm still a little bit of a novice on quench.
I don't want to get into quench in this one, because that's a whole separate thing. I do
topic
want to
by
get into
itself.
that topic by itself. But you talk about detonation, people right away, they think detonation, they're thinking the loud audible ping, a knocking that you hear. And that's actually the extreme of detonation. And it's actually not the most, from a race motor standpoint, it's not the most damaging, because that's the detonation that will break a piston.
Okay.
But the type of detonation that actually rattles an engine apart is an inaudible detonation.
So that's the ones that beat the main bearings out, beat the rod bearings out, right?
The things that beat the main and rod bearings out, well, on a nitro car, it's generally from bottom hole detonation.
Okay.
Right? But yeah, typically, it's a loud hammering,
the
bang, right?
And if you don't know what detonation sounds, if you've ever imagine marbles in a coffee can, and when you mash the gas and that sounds like marbles in a coffee can, that's exactly what you're experiencing.
But that's extreme detonation.
Right.
Okay. The detonation that you don't hear, that's not audible, and really won't show up, is a fine high harmonic that works its way through the motor, and like literally like case hardens the rods as you drive, as you see what I'm saying?
Right.
And what that is it's a spiky combustion process. So in other words, in a combustion chamber, fuel is never supposed to explode. It's not supposed to detonate. It burns rapidly.
Right.
Okay. But you've got, if you were to follow it like on a graph, okay, like the ideal pressure spike from the combustion process would have a curve to it, like this, right? And so as the piston is coming up, the piston starts to move away from top to the center, and the curve, that pressure spike, is following it down.
Right.
Okay. But in an engine that's seeing detonation, right, that curve is like a sharp peak, like this. And what it's doing is it's come up like this. The piston, as it's coming down, that sharp spike is not working with the piston, but knocking it. Right, exactly. It's not like pre-ignition, like dieseling that you hear, where it's like it's lighting before the piston gets to the top of the center, or it's light, or the combustion event is happening directly at the top of the center. This is kind of a couple of degrees after top of the center.
Okay.
And it's very.
So what it is then a detonation that occurs, if you picture it like a Mack truck going into an explosion, right?
Okay.
It would be exploding right as the Mack truck gets there, or right before. And that's when it does the most damage, because all the power is still contained right there.
It's a sharp pressure pulse. Instead of an easy pressure pulse, it's a sharp pressure pulse. And you'll see this. See, a lot of people don't understand the relationship between the combustion process, combustion cycle, and let's say the tire.
Right.
Right? As it goes, but there is a direct relationship. And a friend of mine, Nasty Dave Benjamin, he races fuel alternates. Actually, he was an AHRA guy. Okay. And he turned me on to this years ago. There was a film, I think it was called 7 Second Love Affair. I don't remember.
Oh yeah, I know.
Okay.
I've seen that.
It was filmed in like the late 1960s. Okay. And there's a sequence of a dragster doing a burnout. And what they did was they shot it with super high speed film.
Right.
And they showed it in super slow motion.
Okay, this is where they were using the cameras off the front of like the World War II aircraft, stuff like that.
Kinda, yeah.
And it was on the front of the dragster. I think that one was filmed at Lions. Is that the one filmed at Lions?
No, I remember what was filmed from it, but this particular scene, though, right? It's what it, like I said, they shot it with super high speed film and then showed it in super slow motion. So as the car's doing a burnout, you're seeing the wheel, and you're seeing here's the engine and here's the pipes. Okay, and you can see pipe fires. As the pipe fires, the wheel goes like this. Then the next pipe fires, and the wheel goes like this. And the next pipe fires, and the wheel goes like this.
Yeah.
And you can actually see the direct relationship, the direct correlation between each fire and cylinder.
And a 60-style dragster would be perfect for that because it was a direct drive with a clutch, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a slipper clutch, it was a direct drive clutch.
Yes, yeah, in those days, yeah, that would have been a direct drive clutch. Oh, a super chat. Oh, shit. Yeah, be careful moving it. You're not going to. What's this here?
So Uncle Tony, I want to see you make a 240Z and put a build 318 Dodge in it. I think that'd be cool.
Send us a 240Z. I mean, you know, I love those. I get two of them. So yeah, send us a 240. Only I don't think I would want to do the 6 that's in there. Those are great motors.
The inline 6?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, the one that always comes up every time we have the tech video is that 4.2 Vortec. Always comes up, like, and that must be the hot motor now that everybody's on. The inline 6 4.2 Vortec. I like the Trailblazers and the Rainiers and stuff like that because it's very similar to like that Vera 6 from Australia.
What were we just talking about?
We were talking about is a direct drive clutch, so you can see the
direct correlation between each combustion cycle and the movement of the wheel. So now to take that to the next extreme, if that combustion cycle is sharp, if it's lean, okay, and sharp, that sharpness transfers its way through the driveline directly to the tire. Okay, so you can actually you can have cars that have traction issues. That the traction issue is based on the thing being too lean, too sharp a combustion process, too sharp of a hit on the piston,
too much jolt
through the drivetrain to the rear. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
See, we watch things through our eyes at the speed that we perceive things, and we don't perceive those movements.
Right. But when you do that super slow-mo at a high frame rate, you can see it all.
It's actually there. Just because you don't see the car doing something, or it doesn't register in your mind, doesn't mean that that's not an actual event that's happening. So there is an absolute direct correlation between that event that happens at top dead center when the spark plug fires and how that power is transferred through the drivetrain to the tire and then put to the ground.
Okay.
Right. Now, when that pressure spike is too sharp and there's enough resistance through the drivetrain, you experience a type of detonation that isn't audible detonation, but it's like a high frequency harmonic that runs through the drivetrain. The drivetrain, well, mostly the engine itself. It kills power. Right. But at the same time, it also kills your parts. That's what fatigues rods. That's what fatigues crankshafts and stuff like that. Right? So you always want to avoid that type of detonation by always keeping things just to the fat side.
Okay. And that's where a lot of people don't understand it. They think detonation all is timing. Well, no, detonation it can occur from timing. It can occur from a bad fuel mixture. It can actually occur from bad fuel. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that could actually cause detonation. And because everything's mechanically linked together, once you start having detonation issues, you can damage not just the piston itself, but you're talking the mains, the rods. That you can actually screw up a lot of stuff internally that's rotating inside the engine.
Yep. Again, you go back to experiences with the nitro cars. I was working for one guy. It's very sharp, right? This was back in like the 1880s. I was just learning the whole nitro thing. I was a helper at the time, and I was working for this one guy, and he was known for being able to run lap after lap after lap without ever taking the heads off. Okay, at one point like 50 runs without ever taking the fucking heads off.
Oh, like the surfers.
Yeah, I mean this was in the 80s when that stuff was unheard of.
Oh, right.
Okay, so at any rate, he had a thing where after a run, he would go and check certain bolts at the front of the car. And what would happen was if the thing was on the lean side, right, it would loosen certain bolts at the front of the car, like the upper Aeon bolt at the left front would actually loosen.
Huh.
The harmonic was that sharp, the
It would
frequency
shake
was that
it would
sharp
shake the
through the
bolts
frame
loose.
that it would shake certain bolts loose. And he would know, if this is loose, I got to fatten it a bit.
Huh. Well, that means you got a lot of runs under your belt when you can figure things like that
Well,
out.
he did.
Yeah.
You know, one of the great unspoken, unsung, but anyway, so what you saying now? Oh, wait, let's talk to these guys.
Sure. You want
to? Here, I'll put the hammer. I'll put the Dragon Slayer away here.
chicken fingers with a donation. Get ready for more views.
Thank you.
Back to the top. There were a few questions.
Questions?
All right. So all about detonation tonight.
Well, no. I think we started with detonation, but now let's get into like basic
timing
stuff.
and fuel. Yeah.
Plug reading. People want to know about plug reading.
Well, I tell you what, I got some ragged Buick motors here. We'll just pull a plug out of whatever one and just check her out, see what she has to say.
All right, back towards the beginning, Steve Mellon asked, I have a 360 with a beehive for intake. I would like to change it. Any suggestions?
Beehive for intake.
Is that the Magnum? That's the Magnum.
Oh, he's talking about the Magnum? Yeah, there's a couple of different manifolds that are on the market.
I heard that beehive actually flows really good. That's the ones with the dual throttle body at the top, right?
It's got a single throttle body on top.
Oh, I thought it had two barrels.
I don't know what he's trying to accomplish, so I don't know what to recommend him doing.
All right.
Well, on a street strip, I mean, you can never go wrong if you got like something that's like a Performer RPM style intake manifold.
Or air gap.
Right.
So we got a 340 versus 360. What's your thoughts from Rolo 41?
I prefer the 340. It's just a tighter geometry.
I've never owned either one.
I'm not a guy.
But I have heard, the 340 is the epitome of what was good about the 60s muscle cars. It was big bore, short stroke.
Yep.
And the big bore, short stroke, and with the Mopar style longer rod, it makes all the sense in the world that the geometry for the 340 is by far better than the 360.
Yeah.
And I believe the 340 is also the motor that they used to run Trans Am, wasn't it? Then they de-stroked that motor.
They're 305 inches.
That's what I thought.
Broker Joker ATV wants you to come fix his brother's 4-cylinder Mustang.
Oh yeah, I'll be there in 15 minutes. No problem. Take the time and belt cover off.
Hammer Time Racing asked, can you change a Holly 750 base plate to an 850, and is there any benefit?
Swapping Holly base plates amongst, I'm not a Holly.
Yeah, I think the body is the same, isn't it? The body, the 850 and the 750 body is the same.
If you're talking double pumpers, I believe they are the same, right?
Yeah, I believe that they are.
Let's see.
Is that a super chat?
That was from earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Let's see, is 235 PSI compression too high for 110 octane?
Oh, 235 PSI? Man, that's pretty high.
That's a lot of squeaks.
For a 110 octane, I honestly don't know. If it was 3.5 for, I guess, what was your static compression ratio calculation to begin with? And then when you get a kind of a ballpark, if you got 235 and it's 11-to-1 compression,
it would be more than 11-to-1 compression.
It would have to be closer to 13, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And anything over like 12 3/4, I think is too much for 110.
I think it's going to be timing sensitive. I mean, yeah, I would just bring the timing back. If unsure, bring the timing back a couple of degrees.
All right. Let's see. Greg McDonald asks, were radiators in the 67 to 70 small block darts all the same? Were the water inlets and outlets both on the driver's side, or did they differ if the car had air conditioning?
No difference in air conditioning. They were all on the one side until 1969 or 1970, and then they switched to the other side. Yeah, the driver's side before 69, passenger side after 69.
Ken Nova wants to know what you think of the 5.7 Hemis.
Oh.
What do you think of them?
I think they're a bitchin' motor.
Right.
The big problem, I think, when they first came out was they had problems with them dropping valves. Well, they actually wasn't even valves, the seats, right? And then when they would get, the heat in the head would expand the seat area, and the seat would fall out.
Yeah.
But I think.
And then what happened is people would shut them off. the car would be running fine. They pull into a supermarket, whatever, shut the car off, and when they go to restart it, the valve seat had fallen out.
Oh, I think it's a bitchin' motor. I really do. I think it's actually, and then I know the traditional Hemi guys are gonna be like, it's not a traditional Hemi, but I think it's a great motor. I mean, it's been around. Every motor that ever existed can be tested by its longevity of runs, right? When you look at say the AMC Straight Six, that sucker existed from like 62 to what 2007.
Yeah.
The run that it had was immense, and all it did was refine until you get the last motor, and that thing is top notch.
Well, I mean, the 5.7 has been around for a long time. It's got that weird oiling, the top end oiling issue that I did 2 videos on.
Really?
Yeah, because what happened was, all right. So
is this the one that ate the lifter?
Yeah, well, they all not all ate lifters. It's a super common problem. And I did 2 videos on this because what happened was when they were looking to draw up the new Hemi, right? They called in, I believe it was Tom Hoover. I don't even know which engineer it was from the Gen 2 Hemi, and they were like, okay, if you were going to start with a clean slate, how would you improve this engine over what the 426 was? So he said, and it was a good idea. He was absolutely right. Raise the camshaft so that the push rods don't have to be at such crazy angles.
Yeah. Yep. Because it was made into a Hemi after they used the wedge block,
yes,
right? So it was like you just lived with what you had.
Right. So they raised the cam, and now the push rods have like a dead straight shot at the rockers. It's the top end geometry is the best of all of the Hemis by a long shot. Downside of that is that they moved the camshaft so far away from the crank that the cam doesn't get the windage, the splash. So at low RPM, it runs dry, and that's where the Hemi eating. Actually, it just happened on my brother's car. My brother has a 2000, I think it's a 2012 Charger. It's an ex-cop car, and yeah, just literally happened to his last week, and he sent it over to my buddy Al Castillo over in Woodbury here, and had him put a cam and lifters in it. But that's what happens. It just extended periods of idling, right? Or like stuck in traffic, there isn't enough splash making its way all the way up to the cam.
And of course, they didn't enlarge the oil passages because they didn't think anything of it.
Well, see, that's the other thing too. The oil passages, okay, so instead of the lifters being like this, okay, the lifters set like this. So what happens is the oil that bleeds down the lifter just falls straight down, and it doesn't drip down onto the cam. So that's a bad fucking design, you know?
But those are the designs that you learn about, when you put 100,000 miles on a motor, or 200,000 miles on them, and then you find out, hey, okay, that was a bad deal.
But it's been like that for years, and Chrysler hasn't addressed it. Because I believe if they did admit that, yeah, this is a bad fucking
there's
design,
a lot of recalling.
There's class action lawsuits that would bankrupt, Paraguay.
I was actually, my personal opinion, I remember when that Hemi came out with, so Hot Rod Magazine, I used to live and die by Hot Rod Magazine because I could get them delivered to the ship. We'd be on at sea, you get mail, bang, I got a Hot Rod Magazine. I knew what was going on in the car world. I might not have a clue what's happening with my family, but the car world I had under control, right?
Right.
And in 2001, I think, they did an article about the new generation Hemi that's going to be released in 2003. And it may have been CarCraft, I don't know, but I had a subscription to like a bunch of them. But when they talked about it, I thought what was going to happen was Chrysler was going to build a new Hemi and they were going to go back to NASCAR racing. Well, they went back to NASCAR racing at the same time, and it was like, wow, they didn't use the Hemi. They had some whole new motor. And it was a little bit of a letdown on my part because I thought things were going a little bit backwards instead of being the corporatized world. But man, when the first time I ever saw one of those was in a 300C, and the guy wanted to street race, and I'm like, well, okay, let's do it, right? And that sucker ran really good.
They ran really good. They do. They run excellent. They have beautiful ports. They got, I mean, really everything about those engines is nice, except for that oiling issue up on the top end.
Yeah.
I know I had an 03 Dodge Dakota with 5.9 in it, 373 gears, and I got walked by my buddy with a 5.7 in his 1500.
Really?
Yeah.
And it was carrying a lot more weight.
Yeah. Broker Drinker ATV with his third donation tonight.
Thank you.
will you ever do a series on your fans builds? Could I send you a pic?
John
If so,
Wilburn
how
does that,
you
doesn't he?
and
Yeah, John Wilburn does that. Yes, send it to John Wilburn for sure. Well, I'm going to get together with. I've been so busy with stuff. I haven't been paying attention to things that should be on the channel. But yeah, we absolutely going to do more readers or viewer stuff because I love that. We did that live. I guess it was 2 weeks ago. And it was like the best live I think ever because I really enjoyed seeing. You have to see some of these rides that people.
And that was the only night that I missed the live.
That's what. Well, John Wilburn did it.
And
John Wilburn did a composition. He did a clip video on his channel of that. So if you guys want to see some of UTG viewer rides, go to John Wilburn's channel, and he put up a video with all of the ones that people submitted, and I think a couple more that people submitted that night. But yeah, we are absolutely going to do more viewer stuff. I want to do that more than anything else. So just give me a little time to figure out how we're going to do it.
Yeah, well, when it warms up, I'd like to do some more engine start stand stuff. That would be cool too.
Yeah.
Somebody had suggested when we did the start stand, they're like, what would happen if you ran that sucker and did the handbrake improperly? And I think it'd be bitching just to get a freaking junkyard motor and slap a cam and lifters in it and screw it all up on purpose.
That's too painful, man.
Yeah, but it's on the stand.
All right, let's do it then.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the start stand. It's easy to get to.
All right, let's see if we can get one of the cam manufacturers to
Comp up a $99 cam. Wasn't in Comp was doing $99 cams for like a long time, right? Or
I beware of $99 cams. There's some things I don't mind spending money on.
Internal parts are one of them.
I'm the cheapest motherfucker that ever lived, right? But there's some things I don't mind spending money on.
Dallas, we got a question about the AHRA. Does it have a class for motorcycles?
We actually do have a motorcycle class. Generally, there's never really enough bikes to run, unfortunately. It used to be, I'll talk about the good old days. God, you'd have 20, 30 bikes show up. And now you can't hardly get anybody to show up for them.
Yeah, well, I actually used to run Pro Fuel.
On bikes,
which was awesome. That was the AHDRA, the All Harley Davidson Racing Association.
Yeah,
they adopted that class, I believe, after the AHRA started. That was some neat stuff, man. It was fucking iron heads on nitro,
Right. And these are all like ironhead, like knucklehead bikes, right?
No, iron heads. I mean, like literally iron head Sportster motors.
Oh, you mean like
that was
the old motors?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I'm talking about way back in the day.
Let's see. We got Harry Slother asked, a machine shop told me I can't make 450 horsepower with the cast iron heads, 64cc, 2.1, 1.8 valves. What do you think? 350 olds.
Go find yourself in the machine shop.
Oh, it's a 350 olds? You could easily do that with 350
Yeah.
olds. That sucker's, they got a big bore, short stroke, and the heads are badass. If you ever look at any of the big block heads, that's the neat thing about the Oldsmobile was the blocks were, the only difference was deck height, right? Yeah. And you could actually put an Oldsmobile big block head on a small block, and then make an intake manifold for it. If you find a good set of like a C head and put it on a 350 olds, you could easily do 450.
Yeah, just don't RPM it. Those motors don't like to RPM.
Oh,
I
like the old sound good.
They sound, but then they got a main bearing that's this fucking big. each bearing takes a full quart of oil. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I could see that.
See, Ron Ward asked, dear Uncle Tony, you mentioned you'd rather have closer to 30 psi than 40 psi oil pressure at 2,000 RPM on the sloped sixer. Would you achieve this via altering bearing clearances or release spring?
Okay, usually when I build my own motors, I build them loose. So if I send the crank out to get cut, I'll have it cut 11-11 instead of 10-10 or 21-21 instead of 20-20. I didn't on this time. This one's got stock bearing clearances. I don't know exactly how I'm going to lower the oil pressure on it. I have to lower the oil pressure on it. There's no question about it. I don't know how I'm going to go about it, but I'm shooting for that, 7 to 8 pounds per 1,000 RPM. So 2,000 RPM, it should have had, 18 to 20 or thereabouts.
Is the oil pump external on the slant?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you can adjust it with a release spring?
Yeah, I just got to take it apart. Just got to pop the pump back off. And I will. As soon as there's some other things I got to do, and I'll take care of that.
No, well, I've become a pro at the Buicks with this thing, and a lot of it is really just patience.
Yeah.
You got to be patient about it and just play with springs and start it up and try it out. See what happens when it's warm, because when it's cold, it's a completely different ballgame.
Right, exactly. All I did was run the car in the shop. I haven't actually put it to its paces yet to see what the true numbers are going to be.
Right.
You know, so after we do that, then I'll start tweaking around with getting the pressure to where I want it to be and all of those other things.
Right.
See, Anthony Santiago wants to know your advice on waking up an engine Pontiac 350 that's been sleeping for 31 years. Garage kept in a 68 Firebird.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
It's been
garage
sitting
kept.
inside. Did you see the video where we started up the special? That's
Yeah, we
about
did a video,
exactly
yeah.
that process that you need to do.
What was the name of that video?
Abandoned something. Abandoned.
We did it like last month. Just go back. It's 1963 Buick. And you'll see everything we did to get that engine started. If it's been sitting in the garage, you really, literally, you got nothing to do with it. You know, just squirt a little WD-40 or PV blasted down the carburetor, spin it over a few times, let it rip. It should be fine.
See, Viking Child wants to know what do you think about the Mopar 400?
That's a good motor.
It's a great motor.
Yeah, it's a short deck, like 3-3, right?
It's a big boy 3-3.
That's that's the ones that make the 452 strokers.
Yes, they take the 440 crank, they turn down the mains, they put it in the 400 block.
That's a good motor.
The 400 is the biggest bore of all big block Chryslers. It starts off at 4.3 400, where the 440 starts out at 4.3 200.
Dan Boyd asked if Olds V8 suffer from oiling problems like the Buicks.
Not as bad. They don't, but he's right. They don't like RPM because the bearing speed with a big main bearing like that, when you turn them up, the bearing speed is so high because the further you move out from dead center, the faster that mass is rotating, is moving, and you need a lot of oil to lubricate that.
The biggest problem with the Buick, in my opinion, right, is that side oiling of the camshaft.
Well, I think the biggest problem with the Buicks is I wish I got a block here. We'd have to wrestle it out, but the block is so thin. It's so thin that I think what happens is the block flexes and it tightens up the tolerances on the mains. And when it tightens up the tolerances on the mains, it starves number 7 rod. Because if you've ever blown up a Buick, they always tear up number 7 rod.
See, my experience with Buick failures all have to do with the cam digging its way down into the main saddles, into the saddle. No, because the Buick oils, instead of like, okay, so if you're familiar with like Chevys or Mopars or the cam oils from the bottom. You know, so if you don't put a cam bearing in it, the hole's facing straight down. Okay, but on a Buick, it's at the 9 o'clock position. If you're looking straight at the motor, it's at 9 o'clock like this, and the motor's rotating this way. So whatever oil comes in through that side has to go all the way around before it gets to the bottom. And naturally, the valve train is pushing down.
So the bottom is the one that needs the oil the most.
Right. So like I said, the oil's got to make this trip 3/4 of the way around before it hits that critical point at the bottom, and then it's got to fight the valve train. You know. So my experience with Buicks is them tearing up the bottom of the mains or the bottom of the cam bearing.
Number 1.
Yeah, number 1 cam bearing especially.
Yeah. And there's another thing too that kind of sucks about it, because when it's got the oil pump up front, because it's directly on the front of the cam and there's nothing supporting the front of the cam at all. Right. And it drives the distributor gear. Well, if you jack the oil pressure up, and that used to be the cheap way to fix everything, was jack the oil pressure to the moon. Well, when you jack the oil pressure to the moon, it's then pressing on the front of the cam even harder.
When you look at the front, if you're not familiar with Buick camshafts, go get one. When you look at a Buick camshaft, if you're not familiar with them, it looks like something like an Aztec, like fertility thing. Like it doesn't look like an automotive part, right? He just keeps getting one now. You look at it and say, "What the hell is going on there?"
There you go. I don't know if anyone can see.
Yeah. The camera's over there.
Right. Am I on there? Am I on there?
Yeah. Now rotate it so they can see how that. Look at here. Well, look at this. Okay, so
off center ground.
There's the fuel pump eccentric, right? And look at the way this thing is just. That's driving your distributor and your oil pump. And look at this.
And there's nothing supporting it right here. It's just hanging out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
With the distributor riding on it. That's running the pump, and it's pressing down on the front of this cam, which chews up #1 cam bearing. You can't see the groove here. The oil will lubricate and go all the way around, just like Tony was saying, but it takes it a whole entire revolution to get to the other side.
Well, the #1 on that's fully grooved.
It is.
But the other ones aren't.
No, and that's because they're not oiled that way. They actually come, like, if you take them apart, they're not similar to this one.
Okay.
It actually goes through the lifters and all kinds of crap. There's 2 big main galleys, right? And,
Well, you're standing off to the side. Nobody can see what you're talking about.
oh, okay. Well, the #1 is grooved, so the oil can actually go around it. But that's so that it can make it to the other side of the block, which fills up the lifters.
Right.
That's the whole point of this groove. The oil does come on this side. On the rest of the cam bearings, it only has 1 groove or 1 opening. This one has 2, so one feeds the other passage for the other galley.
Yeah.
Right. These don't feed anything, so it just has oil coming on one side.
Right, but it's
Right.
coming in on the side.
Same side.
So it's got to go all the way around.
Right. Yeah, on every single one of them.
Yeah.
But one is #1 is always the one that gets toasted, and it's because of everything up front that's not supported, and because like what
So
you
when you
said.
start boosting up oil pressure, you're going for big pressure, big volume on a Buick. You're forcing a part of the camshaft that's just like
Dangling.
yeah, it's just dangling off the end, and it's like it only spins concentric, out of luck. This is what it is.
Yeah, and I had one that was a bracket motor that had 120 pounds of oil pressure when I started it up, right? And the oil filter was had hose clamping it onto the pump because it had so much oil pressure blow the filter off when you first started it up. Well, when I took it apart, I thought, man, this sucker's got some serious oil pressure, right? So the tolerances are tight, the whole 9 yards. No, it had high volume, high pressure oil pump, everything you could do to a Buick oil pump. It had it done. But it also had all the teeth chewed straight off of the cam gear. Like it's a hard gear.
But it's a cast shaft.
Right.
So I mean, it's flexible by nature,
Right.
Justin Christoph with a donation.
Hey, Justin, thank you.
Please walk me through the lean burn system. What is it and how the hell to get rid of it? Does Pertronics make a kit to swap the guts?
I cannot walk you through it. It's not possible to walk through it. It's take it off, throw it away, right? Which is what we were doing in the 70s, okay? Take it off and throw it away. All you need to do to eliminate it completely from your life, like it never even existed, is just get a non-lean burn distributor and plug it in the motor. That's all you got to do.
I can't believe there's still any of them around, to be honest with you.
Oh, please.
Well, it was a hell of an idea. It just didn't work out. It was all for emissions.
And by the way, what the lean burn distributor did was it took the place of both the vacuum and the centrifugal advance. So there were no advanced, like the lean burn distributor is completely locked out. And if you're building a race motor and you want to lock out the distributor, a lean burn distributor is a good one to use. But for a street motor, that was this computer, which was from like the 1970s, right? No, 1970 computer technology. So
A transistor. That's about it.
So yeah, what it did was it took throttle input and it varied the timing, based on that. But it was terrible fucking system. They didn't work in the day.
Brad O'Connor wants to know if the 400 CI Dodge's crankshaft is the same as the 383.
Yeah, the all 400 cranks are cast. No, wait, I shouldn't say that. Early 400 stick shift crankshafts were steel.
Oh, right? That's the steel one.
Yeah.
Same as the 383s.
But only so if you got, let's say, a Roadrunner, 72 Roadrunner, 400 4-speed, it had a 383 steel crank in it.
Okay, that's kick-ass.
Okay, but that was like only the very earliest ones.
Oh, so like 1 year only.
Yeah, and then they went to cast from that. That's the downside. The upside is you're not going to break a cast crank. You're not going to break a Mopar cast crank. It just ain't going to fucking happen. So don't let that even enter your head.
Ryan Fry wants to know, he says, I just picked up some 308 heads from a junkyard for my 318. I'm going to deck the heads. 4,000ths port and intake match the heads and intake. What cam do you recommend for this?
40,000s. I can't recommend the camshaft unless I know almost every detail of your life. how are you going to use the car? What's the gearing? What transmission? What converter? How are you going to use this thing? Is it going to go uphill? Is it going to go downhill? Is it a drag car? Is it a street car? Is your wife going to buy donuts with it? I don't know. I can't. What you need to do is get a hold of the CAN manufacturer, give them all the critical specs, all the critical operating characteristics of your car, and let them recommend the grind to you.
And I was going to throw this out there. Like if this was 20 years ago, I bet every Bopar guy would be like, purple cam,
purple cam in it. How many people? I go through the comments. So many people say, my uncle had a whatever Cuda, and he put a purple cam in it, and he would jump beer cans in the parking lot.
Let's see. Ron Ward wants to know, what are the pros and cons of a Magneto versus a single breaker point distributor with an Excel supercoil on a street engine?
Oh, street?
Magnetos go away. That's the only problem with a Magneto.
They wouldn't last a lot of miles. I mean, it wouldn't be like 100,000. It would definitely wear out. But the neatest thing about a Magneto is you can lose your entire electrical system, and the sucker will keep going.
Yeah.
That's about the only big benefit of a Magneto on the street.
Low amp Magnetos, like they use on lawnmowers and stuff like that, run forever, right? And like the 3.5 amp Magnetos, like the Ronco, the Vertex, right? Those will run for a very long time. But when you get into like, let's say a
Pro Mags,
like a 5 amp mag, something that's like compatible with a contemporary, ignition system, those rare earth magnets lose their charge over the course of, let's say, a year. When we were running the fuel cars, we were Super Mag 5s, and you had to send them out once a year to be charged. If you took a Super Mag 5 and you put it on a shelf and said, okay, I'll use this if we need it, right? Yeah. If it sat there for the whole season, it was dead at the end of you couldn't light anything.
I did not know that. I just know that they do get weak spark.
Yeah.
But man, I tell you, I've only seen one guy run them on the street.
Now the old Vertexes, right? The ones before they were Ronco, right? The old Vertexes. They used a magnet that would actually gain strength as it sat.
Really?
Yeah, like you.
It's not a rare earth. It might be like neodymium or whatever.
So right, yeah. I mean, I'm not a
magnet
geologist. Yeah, I'm not a magnet guru. But I can tell you that whatever material magnet that they used then, if you ran the thing down to where it was like a 3.5 amp mag, and if you ran it down to like where it was a 3 amp mag, and you took it out, put it on a shelf for a couple of months, put it back in, be back up to the 3.5 amp.
Huh.
It just had to do with the material that they were using.
I think it's pronounced neodymium.
Neodymium?
Yeah. Let's see, kind of running out of questions. I have a 99 Ram with 5.2. I'd like to freshen up the motor and give it a little more torque. Any combinations that you know that really work well?
99. I bet you could probably gain a lot more torque just by going through the fuel system. Because I bet you that most of the injectors are pretty worn out by now.
Yeah, that's the truth.
I don't think I've read this one. What intake carb will work on my stock long block 1976 440? Low RPM torque is my goal, not HP. I may be putting it in my 76 Vol Air.
Oh, Glory?
Yeah, low RPM torque. What is spreadboard? Thermoquad, Quadjet, one of the Hollies.
Elbrock made them for a while.
Yeah, I mean, not so much. What's the current Thermoquad, the one that they make?
The current one?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
It's escaping me. But yeah, use a spread bore, thermoquad derivative, Quadjet, any of those things. That's what you want for your low end torque, drivability and low end torque. The small primary blades, the small primary bores, big velocity through there. And that's your
velocity equals torque.
Yep.
What's up, guys? Shoot me some more questions to read. 340 versus 360 stroker, 70 Challenger. Probably going to go back to what your purpose for the car is.
Yeah,
it'd be the same motor almost.
It's really exactly the same motor. I would use the 360 only because why waste a 340 block on something like that? It's a 40 thousandths inch difference in bore between a 360 and since you're going to stroke it, you're going to put a Ford stroker in there. Doesn't matter which one you use. So use the 360.
Andrew Hensler, I want to get into building late 60s era cars for fun. Where should I start? I'd like to get a 68 or 69 Comet and turn it into a Super Bee.
68, 69 Comet.
Coronet.
Oh, Coronet.
He wants a clone. He wants a clone of Super Bee.
Clone Super Bee. Man, if you were wanting to just start the whole hobby and you want to get in cheap and learn the basics, oh man, a car like the Buick Special was probably perfect.
Yeah, there's a lot of cars you can pick up for cheap money, like $1,500, $2,000. They're like his Buick is 63 Buick. I love that car.
It's simple,
easy. It's simple. It's solid. It's straight. He paid what? How much you pay for that car?
I paid $2,600.
2,600. Yeah,
22 maybe. I can't remember honestly.
Yeah, it's all a blur. Yeah, but listen to me, right? If you're going to do a car, a Super Bee, no 68. Don't do a 68. You have no idea what a 68 trunk lid goes for. You'll pay more for a 68 trunk lid than you will for an entire 1969 car.
And that's the big thing, is picking the right brand. Because if you're just starting off, if you go after a Mopar V-body, it used to be, when I was a youngster, the Mopar E-body was very expensive, right? And now it's bled out to where the E-bodies are unobtainium, the B-bodies are expensive, the A-bodies are getting, which were almost the throwaways, are getting to be just
common Dart was $10,000. It's insane.
But if you pick the off-brand stuff, like there's a lot of guys like Fairlanes. Well, if you go after a Mercury Cyclone or a Comet, you pay half the price you would a Fairlane.
But what are you going to pay for parts?
I don't know. I don't know. Some of them aren't repopped.
See, like for instance, Kathy was going through the other day. She found a 70 Challenger RT SE for $4,500. Okay, and the car was so it was like a $60,000-$70,000 car.
Right.
Okay, $4,500. But what it would cost you, because E-body stuff is so ridiculous.
Right.
You know what I mean? What it would cost you to put that car together.
You have $7,000.
Yeah, there's no bargains there. There's no bargains. So, but you take the example what he's saying about cloning a Coronet into a Super Bee, which is a great idea, but like, for instance, if you don't know the specifics of the cars, like an 1868 Coronet, the way the trunk lid is designed, the trunk lid rots along the back section, or along the back lip. Up top there like that, just because of the way it was designed. So to find a clean, non-rotted 68 Coronet trunk lid, forget about it. I mean,
and anybody that's got one, they know what it's worth.
People literally pay thousands of dollars for a perfect one. You know what I mean? You're going to pay for just a decent one. You're going to pay $600-$700 trunk lid for a fucking trunk lid, where the 69 has no issue, and so you can pick up a 69 trunk lid for $75.
Yeah, and if you want to be just Mopar specific, I bet the big ones I always found was great deals on like Valiants. Man, you can get a two-door Valiant, and them suckers, they're just as fast as a Dart or Barracuda of the same generation.
Yeah, there's still lots of them out there.
Yeah, and they're relatively cheap. You can usually get one for $2,500,
and they're fun, And don't get yourself into that whole it's got to have a 340. It's got to have. Look at the fun we're having with that Sling 6.
Right. Yeah.
So lots of things you can do.
Yeah, hot rodding just gives you a big smile on your face no matter what you're hot rodding. Really.
Exactly. I find the biggest smiles come from the simplest things.
Right. Well, I'm just like, when you were drag racing and you were young, right? When was the best time you ever had? When you took the car to the track, you pulled the slicks right out of the trunk, bolted them on, you gave it hell. If it didn't blow up, you took the slicks back off, put them in the trunk, went home.
Yeah, the best times of drag racing I ever had was street racing back when I was, a teenager.
Oh, I was going to ask you about this. Were you in New York City street racing?
I was in New York City street racing.
Did you see any of the Brooklyn Heavy where he'd unload a pro stocker in the middle of town and drag somebody's ass in the middle of town?
Yep, it was crazy. It was fucking crazy. Those were great days, And then it's okay, well, some is good, more is better. So I went right from street cars to nitro cars. And it was like that was like 15
exactly
years.
The same car.
That was like 15 years of stress and terror. You know what I mean? And poverty. It was like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
it was.
I don't know what I mean, but what you mean. But I've seen everybody else do it. So
yeah. It was ridiculous. And then now it's like I'm finding the biggest kick out of 318s and Slanted 6s.
No, I'm doing the same thing. I just got a bunch of junk Buicks. Did I get them running and have fun? I mean, fire them up, and if I put them in something, I put them in something.
Like a Mercedes.
Yeah, like a Mercedes.
I went like that because this camera is mounted on an engine stand, and the engine stand is in front of his Mercedes Lemons car.
All right. I don't know how to pronounce that. 170. Smith. No. Olmec, Texas, maybe?
Smith.
Okay. 170 Studebaker 6. If I lock up the distributor, what advance should I set it at if the total advance is 35 degrees in the book?
Oh, they're giving you total? They should be giving you.
Is that total with vacuum? That's important to know because 35 seems like a lot for total for that.
The total is all dependent upon the efficiency of the head. So I'm assuming since it's a 6, it can probably handle quite a bit because it's not a crossflow.
Bore has a lot to do with it. Bore has a lot to do with it. It takes time. So the flame is going to be the same. Spark plug is the same no matter what. Okay. So the flame is going to travel at the same basic speed.
Right.
So how long does it take to get across that from here to here? How long does it take to get across that from here to here?
Right.
So optimum timing is based on a lot of factors, but the big factor is bore because it just takes that much time for the flame to get from one side of the chamber to the other. So
I guess efficiency
that
of the head.
That Studebaker is going to have that 6 is going to have a small bore.
Yeah.
So I would say that probably 22 to 28 degrees is probably about optimum. If they're giving you a 35, I'm almost guarantee that's including vacuum advance. So you don't want to have that in.
And the neat thing is you can actually figure this out real simple because back it off to like say, just like you said, 28, you're thinking 28, right? Take it back to 26 total.
Yeah.
Go drive it and then see how it performs. Then when you come home, add 2 degrees in, go drive that. There will be a sharp drop off when you actually pass the efficiency of the combustion chamber.
Yeah.
Right. It'll actually drop off and you feel the performance.
Well, the way we used to power time them is you set the distributor where you think it should be, ballpark, right?
Oh, well, that's one thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, set the distributor where you think it should be, where it runs the best, okay? And then with the gas you're going to use, whatever type of gas you're going to use regularly in it, and take the car out and run it up a hill, okay? Fly punch it, going up a hill. If it pings, back the timing off 2 degrees, do it again. Keep doing that until it doesn't ping, right? If it doesn't ping, if it's starting off, keep increasing the timing until you get a ping out of it, and then back it off to 2 degrees. And that's the way you find your optimum power timing the engine.
Yeah, and the one thing that you reminded me of when you said that was reading the plugs, right? And the plug will actually tell you if your timing is ideal. And you can't quite see it on here. I mean, this sucker looks beat. Right?
Yeah, that plug is.
And it most likely is the common Buick problem of the guides went away at 11,000 miles and the motor is now just running on pure motor oil. But
oh, geez. No, it's not oil valve. That's gas valve.
Okay.
That's gas valve. You know what that is? That's a fucking bad choke pull off.
And it could be, I don't know. That motor is essentially just given to me. But so here's the big thing. Okay, out of your spark plug, and the strap here is your key indicator for timing. Okay, and I don't know if you can see it well on there, can you? Can you see the strap?
Yeah.
Okay. The further it burns, you want the timing, the timing indicator on the strap is towards the back side of it. Okay, and you want it to burn just about to the back side where it's just below the electrode, would be level with the electrode, just below it. All right, and that tells you that how your timing is on the motor. Is the motor happy with the timing or not? Right. That has really nothing to do with air-fuel ratio. That's just timing. And you'll want to see the burn, and what it'll look like is it'll actually, you can see a heated area where it had been blued in that one spot, right?
Well, one of the ways that we used to tune the nitro cars is to look for three rings of heat. So you would want to pull the plug, right? And we weren't really so much concerned with the ceramic or anything like that because we knew that was going to be, not happy. But you would go down, you would count 3 rings down, and you would look for that same heat mark that he's talking about. But you would look for it 3 threads down. If you had 3 rings of heat, it meant that you were in the right ballpark.
Yeah, so that means you like air fuel was correct.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I've never tuned a nitro motor. Honestly,
well, I'm just saying, it's like you said, you're showing where the heat discoloration on the electrode, and I'm saying, you go one step further, and we used to count for 3 rings of heat.
And I bet you that would probably apply to a gasoline motor, and it probably won't be as extreme, right? But
you're talking gasoline motor,
right? Yeah, yep. And then if you want to actually check your air fuel ratio on these, the ideal thing is put in a new plug, run it, go beat it. And then shut the car off, pull the plug out, put an old plug back in, and then come home and cut the whole entire thread area off. And then you can actually see how it's burned down the entire core area, right? That's ceramic.
That's a good idea. I've never done that, but that is a good idea.
Yeah, but that's how I learned how to do it. And it was only because I was messing with EFI, and I knew so little about the EFI tuning that I had to rely on all the basic stuff. That you remember old Chilton books used to actually come with pictures at the beginning. It showed you exactly this stuff.
You can still find that. You could go to Google Images and put spark plug reading charts, and it'll give you pictures of the spark plugs and all the different conditions and what they mean. But generally speaking, if I'm reading a plug, like after, and we're not talking about an extreme combination, we're talking about just like a regular street car, right? So if I'm going to read a plug, I'm looking at the ceramic, okay, and I want to see a light tan, grayish, tannish, like.
I was always told the perfectly cooked marshmallow, right?
That's good. That's good. Yeah, the color of the ceramic should be right about the same as perfectly cooked marshmallow, right? That tannish, light tan. Darker than that, it's fat. Bring it. If it's still white, that means that you're way lean, so you got to just keep adding a little fuel to it, or increase your jetting, or however it is that you're going to increase the fuel delivery to your engine. But yeah, you want to see the ceramic has got to be that perfectly toasted marshmallow color. Yeah, man, you hit it right on the head.
Yeah, and the only thing that I noticed is different about that is if sometimes you buy other gases, they'll have additives in it, and it'll be the gray like you're talking about. And I've also seen them where they're like a dark or like it's like almost a green color.
Well, that's one of the reasons why people always ask me, "Oh, do you use any fuel additives?" Never. I never use any fuel additives. I always run the fuel pure as I'm going to use it. So if it's pump gas, it's going to be pure pump gas. So it's going to be, 10%, 90, the 10% ethanol.
Right.
That's never add anything to it. Right. Don't add octane. Reduce the need for octane some other way, because all of those additives are going to, not only will they accumulate on plugs, right? But and cause all sorts of like weirdness, but you can't get a good reading on them either.
Right. And I've also seen them where they've destroyed valves because it'll either burn super hot, like the valve is not prepared to do that. Yep. It's not tempered for cylinder temperature of 45,000 degrees, right?
Yeah. So set the motor up to run on the fuel that you're going to use, and don't doctor it up with additives.
Now we're lucky here in Tennessee. Like you can virtually buy non-ethanol gas just about every other gas station.
Yeah, there's a lot of. But I like the ethanol gas. I use it in everything. I never have any problems.
I think there's a gas station in town that's got it race gas on pump.
Oh, did it really? Oh, I remember.
Yeah,
Key Oil used to have VP on a pump.
I think they still do. Brian Brinker is thinking about putting a 440 in his 94 Dakota and use it as a drag truck, and wants to know if he's crazy.
No, that's not crazy. That shit's been running for a while. That's fun.
Sounds like fun, but why
big motor level truck?
Yeah, use a small one, man. It's all bolt together.
It's Dakota, right? Yeah. Or was it Dakota? Is that what it said?
Yeah.
Oh man, the small blocks came in them, so they bolt right in.
Yeah. I mean, unless you got a 440 laying around and you just have to use a 440, then go right ahead. But if you start from scratch, I would definitely do a small block.
Need Metal is asking what your plan is with the smaller slant motor.
It's gonna be badass.
Oh, I
It's
thought you were
gonna be
gonna tell them, because you were telling me and I thought it was badass.
I'm not gonna tell, I'm not telling anybody what it is, because we're not gonna do it right away. I have other things that have to get done.
I thought so. I watched a video came up across my feed that was your video, and I'm like, oh, maybe he's messing with a slant. Well, wait, that's not Plan Z, right?
Which one was
It was a turbocharged, like a.
That's my friend Jim Bennett.
Well, I started thinking, I have one of those
So you're-
turbochargers, that 3.8 draw-through carburetor one.
Okay.
But it's meant for a 231 Buick V6 from 78, 79. Well, I just so happen to have a 215 cubic inch V8 Buick,
That could be good.
and that would be really bitching, because all they got to do is make a small plate, bolts on the carburetor, and then
We'll talk about that.
I think that'd be fun.
The 170 is not something I'm gonna do probably even this year. It probably won't be until the fall. But, and I'm gonna work with Shane on that.
Okay.
You know, but yeah,
That's the guy.
yeah, that 170 is gonna be, I mean, when I tell you trick, I mean trick. But it's not gonna be for a while yet. We got other things we gotta do first.
Bruce W. asked 3 times.
Yes, Bruce.
You have my attention now.
I have read 360 Magnum because the better head design, it needs 34 degrees max and not 36 like the older 360. Is that correct?
It's a fast burn head. It's got 2 quench pads in it. Not that they really act as quench pads in that engine, but yeah, it's got a smaller combustion chamber. It's got a fast burn chamber, and it doesn't need as much lead to be happy as the older style open chamber head. And again, that's just a factor of how much space there is in the chamber. You close up the space, you know, with those quench pads, and it's like now the flame only has to go, you know.
So I take it those Magnums must be, the newer ones must be closed chamber.
They are.
Okay, I've never, I know of them. I mean, the guys have been making them now forever, but, well, actually, they don't make them anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't know there was that much of a drastic difference, because the old ones were all shaft mount rockers. The ones that the Magnums now are well,
These AMC rockers.
They use what?
AMC rockers.
Really? Like off the Jeep motor?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, these are bolt stud rocker.
Okay, I did not know that.
But the combustion chamber, the combustion chamber is very, very similar to the early 273 head, which is the one that I like. Out of all of the small block heads, production heads. I'm not talking W2s or anything like that.
Right.
I like those early closed chamber heads. They have the Magnum head, the combustion chamber is very close to that, except it has a separate quench pad on the opposite side of the chamber to close up the chamber and make it even faster burn.
Right. Okay.
George Reed donated. He didn't have a question.
Thank you.
Mover Man, I'm sorry, I've seen this a couple times and it keeps going away. Says, Tony, I have a brand new Mellings oil pump for a Slant 6 if you need it for your project 170.
Oh, thank you. Is it the aluminum one? Because there's cast iron and there's aluminum one. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. But I got a bunch of oil pumps. I'm one of those people. Like every engine I tear apart, I save certain bits off of, you know, just in case. I've got a bunch of those.
Have you ever blueprinted one?
See, that's a pump,
right? Because the Buicks, that's what I have to do, because you can't just buy a pump. I mean, you can buy the internal pieces for the pump.
right? But there's no separate pump.
Right,
The pump
and
is
then
actually fits inside the housing.
Right, and then that timing cover is big time dollars. So I ended up going through them.
Slide over your
I go through them and I pretty much blueprint the pumps, and man, it makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
What do you
efficiency?
When you shim the cover?
You check. Well, you shim it, and I have shims for that for the Buicks, and I'm sure you can do the same thing with the Mopar, because it does the bottom oil filter housing come off or something.
Yeah.
And then there's a gasket in there, and it's maybe 5 thousandths or so.
Over.
It's an O-ring.
It's an over.
Okay, you might not even be able to shim it then, but it
No.
does.
But I know on
You
the
can
Buick,
shave it, and then that will act like a shim as well.
we never see. Here's the thing: messing with Chryslers, you don't know what an oiling problem is. It doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you just
Must be nice. Like my engine is called oiling problem, then you give it the cubic inch size. Oiling problem 455.
Yeah, see, Chryslers have there's no such thing as an oiling problem with a Mopar as far as circulation goes. Some pan issues, you know what I mean?
Right.
But no.
Oh,
Back in the early days of Top Fuel, you know, they used to use the right up until the 1970s. Well, on the early Hemis or the 392s, they used to stock fucking oil pump. They used a regular. They were making 2,000 horsepower. They were using the stock fucking Chrysler
I'll
oil
show you
pump.
something cool. This is what I was working on this past weekend, and so I'm building a 300 for a guy named Jim out of Florida, and the 300 has, you know, it's same as 215, 350, 340, and I spent hours and hours and hours working on this sucker, right? So here's your basic Buick small block timing cover. This is actually off of 215, so it's got a timing tab on the opposite side. But as you can see, all the oil passages are super small.
Yeah, but you're not showing them.
Okay.
You're showing you.
Yeah, all the oil passages are super small. They're probably 3/8. I think it's supposed to be 7/16, you know, because that's what the pickup is. And what you find is the pickup being 7/16, you got a 7/16 hole here, but then it turns 180 degrees, goes inside the cover, and then there's another 7/16 hole, and then it turns another 180 degrees, goes up in the pump. And once it gets up in the pump, it's not really that much of an issue, but then it's got another 7/16 hole. Well, the ideal thing is the later model Buick V6s had 5/8.
Yeah.
So what you do is you go through the whole entire timing cover, and this is virtually the same timing cover, it's just off a 300 Buick. And then you open that sucker up, and it's like considerably bigger, right? So instead of 7/16, I take it out in 5/8, and then you chamfer all the turns and radius all the turns, and it's more or less volume that you're going for. You want the volume because you can jack the pressure up, it's going to give you more volume, but then it puts more strain on everything else, right? And so, but yeah, timing covers and oil pumps, this is the kind of crap you got to deal with a Buick.
See, people who build Chevys or Chryslers or Fords used to an oil pump. You know, you take the oil pump and you bolt it on the fucking engine, right? Well, that right there is the Buick oil pump. It's part of the timing cover, and it's two gears. So one goes to go here and one goes over here. And those gears are that's oil pump, and all you have is the cover that's over the top of this. So that's one of the idiosyncrasies of building a Buick.
Unfortunately, I got a bunch of idiosyncrasies. But you fix that, you fix a lot of problems. Then you can really turn them up. And then you start dealing with the block flexibility.
What do we got?
Let's see, we got Ron Ward wants to know if you were to build a budget street car using a 1999 or newer car, which one would you choose to build and why?
Ooh, 99?
None.
I figured that was not a good question, but I would read it anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. What would you build?
If it was 99, I'd probably stick with most likely a Mustang. If I'm out of the picture, I'm sorry, I didn't try to be. I'd probably stick with a Mustang because it really is like, it's one of the few things, you know, your options have decreased and decreased and decreased. But 99, you got S10 pickups, you got Blazers.
There's a lot of good stuff. The question is, what would I build? I wouldn't build anything, but there is a lot of good stuff out there to build. You know, I got my Miata. I'm going to do my Miata, but that's an autocross car.
2013 Focus ST. Let's see. Would you ever consider doing a diesel build?
You want to hear something kinky, right? I had a guy comment on.
Let me move back.
No, I had a guy comment, and I gotta get a hold of him specifically. Comment on a Slant 6 video that we did. And he was a Chrysler engineer. He loved the video that we did. He was a Chrysler engineer, and he was talking about the Slant 6 diesel project that they had going.
Oh wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, I've heard about it before, and he said it worked good. It outperformed the Oldsmobile. And
Yeah.
Listen to me, right? I'm driving over here. As I'm driving over here tonight, okay, I live on the other side of the city. As I'm driving over here tonight, I'm thinking about that. I'm saying, I guess if we welded closed the combustion chambers, right, and got the piston way the hell up there, you know,
14, 15,
15 to 1, yeah, 16 to 1, whatever it is, you know, we could actually probably build a Slant 6 diesel.
I don't see why it would be too hard. Will the block handle it?
According to the engineer, yeah, he says they had it running. It was they just didn't have any budget to put it into production. But
Wow.
they had a slant six diesel.
How big's the bore on that? 3.5?
3.4.
3.4?
Yeah.
You think a Mercedes diesel piston would fit in there? That might be something to look at, because I mean, if you made it work, it's no different than what they did to the Oldsmobile. The Oldsmobile was a flop, right?
Yeah.
Let's face it. But it should have worked because the block is stout, right? The only problem is, like, all the other stuff was made for a gasoline engine. It was never engineered to be a diesel engine.
Yeah, but I mean it wouldn't be that hard to get. I mean,
cool.
I know you could get the compression in there, and then you could adapt the mechanical fuel injection from almost anything.
Yeah, it's real simple. All you need is just a dry runner intake, right?
Yeah.
So.
But literally, I was thinking about that as I was driving over.
Did the slant motors ever get a fuel injected option?
No.
What, in like even the late years, like 87,
No.
91?
Carbureted to the end.
Oh, really?
And you use that carburetor as a throttle body.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't really matter.
So this kind of continues on with that. And Tony's opinion is a slant six an adequate towing option for a 3/4 pickup if geared low enough and paired to an overdrive?
No. You gotta understand, as much as I love the slant, and people love the slant six, there's a slant six cult world out there, right? It is terrible. It's a weak little sad motor. You know what I mean?
It works perfect for economy, daily driver, reliable.
Yeah. It's an agricultural piece. It's like it should say Briggs and Stratton on it. It's not. No, you don't want to use it for towing or anything like that. It's either an economy, oh, this is so cool, old school, drive around kind of car, or it's like an experimental, like, lab rat, like what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? There's no in between. Don't try to make it something that it's not.
And I don't think you could even do it with a turbo. The motor's too small. Right,
Yeah,
I mean, it makes decent torque for what it is, but for towing, oh no, it needs torque.
Yeah.
A donation from Mr. the Bandit.
Thank you.
I have been seeing ads for a Thompson Power Blast plate. It's a little plate for better fuel atomization. Would you consider doing a review?
No, they've been marketing stuff like that on and off since like the 1930s. All sorts of different screens and filters and weirdnesses and shit like that are supposed to break up the fuel, ionize the
that was the Fitch, right? The Fitch fuel ionizer.
Please, there's so many different. No, it doesn't work.
You okay with AHRA questions?
Yeah, sure.
Dallas, any 2021 announcements for AHRA members, member track expansions? Is NHRA still not allowing you to run sanctioned events on their tracks?
Yeah, NHRA will not allow us to run. They will pull the sanction of that facility, right? And that's. But the expansions, matter of fact, if you want an announcement, I guess it'd be the opposite of an expansion. What do you call it? Contraction. We lost North Iowa Dragway just this past week, where they announced that they were no longer wanting to sanction with the AHRA. They wanted to go on their own and try an outlaw deal. And I think,
you are an outlaw deal.
Our deal is
about
it's pretty much about as close as you're going to get. Yeah. And that's the funny thing is, like, when the guy that actually operates the track first started, it was his first year. He worked with us, and we did it for 3 years, right? And he's never known anything different. So I think what he's doing is kind of venturing out and just trying his own thing. And I mean, if it works, great. I've more power to him. I wish him the best. I don't want to see any track fail. I don't want to see any owner fail. The whole idea is try to promote drag racing, and you got to have a place to do it first. And
the NHRA is obviously going to create as many roadblocks as they can.
They can,
especially since they're in trouble. They need every little. Let me tell you something. The day those motherfuckers declare that that's it, it's over, I will take off my clothes, climb on my roof. I will dance naked on the roof of my house and howl at the fucking moon.
Wow.
All right. Well,
Did I say that?
Speaking of things you hate,
I meant it actually.
Chris Greenway wants to know, why do you hate GM F bodies, cheap entry level hobby cars?
The doors are too heavy.
For his formulas,
That's a big
Camaros.
one, especially from the 80s and 90s. Well, actually, even go before that. God, the 70s, they were fucking
Who said I hate them? I don't hate them.
I don't know. Just reading the questions.
I like them because they're a great source of parts for everything else.
Let's see. Brandon Miller wants to know how hard it is to put a 65 Falcon straight axle.
Oh, 65 Falcon straight axle? I'll tell you what, if you want to know how to do a straight axle or altered wheelbase, Steve Magnante did a video on this, how to build an altered wheelbase car. And it was
he's got a book.
He does. Well, it's based off that video, and it was a kick-ass video for what it is.
He's a great guy.
He is sharp, and he really loves the historical part of drag racing.
Have you seen his show, Junkyard Gold?
I have.
Yeah.
He just did one on Buick like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that's one of the few things. I see that coming on TV. I stop what I'm doing, and I put my ass on the couch, and I put one of my dogs on my lap, and I watch.
I do the same thing because you know what? I can sympathize with the guy. Because, like, all right, not sympathize. I can put myself in his shoes. Walked around the junkyard, and if you're a true gearhead, you've done the same thing. You've walked around, and you're like, oh, look at that Mazda rotary truck, right? That would be bitching, you know, with like, let's take the rotary out, or even put a 3-rotor deal in it, you know. And it's every car. And today you don't get that experience so much because the junkyards are so rush you through, and or they pull the parts, and you can't go in and look at them. But I can totally put myself in his shoes, and I love it.
I think we got a light spike out of the NHRA rant there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, about 30 lights. Shane Hill wants to know.
I'm not the one who hates them.
Yeah, I saw they could step on a Lego barefoot. Tell us what you really think. Oh, where'd that go?
Shane, Lego barefoot.
Shane Hill wants to know what you think of the Hemi Slant 6 from Australia.
We talked about this the last video, didn't we?
I have never seen one in real life. Those are unicorns here in the United States. They don't exist here. I'm sure I would love it. I'm sure it would be like the highlight of my life, but I've never seen one. None of them came here.
We had some of the Aussies straighten us out. It's not necessarily a Hemi, right?
It's not a Hemi. It's actually very, very close to the Jeep 4.0.
Now, was it, I don't know if it's a cross flow. We did sort out that it does take a 727 Bellhausen, right?
Right. No, it's a reverse flow head.
It's a reverse flow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it's like a slant head then.
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, it's like a Jeep head.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So from what I've seen of the engine, the basic architecture, the cylinder head, combustion chamber, all of it is very similar to the Jeep 4.0, which I happen to love. And I've considered putting one in an A-body because it's a much better engine than the Slant 6. But as far as an actual Aussie 265 or any of that, no, we have none of them here in this country. And again, people have offered to give them to me, but the cost of shipping one to get one here is thousands. If I could build a fucking Hemi for what it costs to get an Aussie 6 over here.
Ben Burge wants to know what your thoughts, experiences are with the 426 Max Wedge.
Oh, I love them things.
I had one of those 64 Fury when I was a kid that I crashed into a sewage treatment plant and ran away from. But I have no real experience with them.
I've never owned one, but my favorite Mopar wedge motors is the 413, 426 motors.
Yeah.
Right? Like when they did the
Max Wedge you're talking about?
Yeah, the Max Wedge motors in what was it, like a Dart with the push button automatic, the 727s, the super stock Dodge and the Beach Boys song. That's my favorite. They were high winding. They had a big long runner intake manifolds. I mean, it was the pinnacle of automotive engineering from like 1959 to 1964. Mm-hmm. And those cars fell in there, and they have some of the coolest stuff. And that's where actually the engineers that were on that project were like the guys that ran the Ram Chargers drag racing team, right? Was man, I can't remember their names. But those guys were engineers for Chrysler.
Yeah, the Ram Chargers wasn't a factory sponsored race team, but it was the Chrysler engineers. It was their club,
right? The
Ram Chargers.
Yeah.
And all of the things that later became, you know, like the Max Wedge and all of that, were all originated on their cars, and one especially called the High and Mighty.
High and Mighty.
Right, and that's where the first tunnel ran, 1959.
Yeah.
They had the very first tunnel ram intake manifold, and it was made out of radiator hose.
and it had sheet metal, all
Yeah,
kind of
it was
just
a
like
sheet metal box.
and RTV'd or something.
It was that was before RTV.
And they had like erector sets holding it up.
Yeah. It was a rectangular box mounted in a pair of Carter AFBs, or were they WCFBs? I don't even remember what carburetors were. But it was a big rectangular box mounted 2 fucking Carter 4 barrels on it, and then radiator hoses, 8 radiator hoses that led down to the intake ports, and it was all held in place with angle iron. Yeah. But that was the very first tunnel intake manifold.
And this sucker was fast. It set a lot of records. That's why they came up with stuff afterwards.
Well, what they learned from that is what they incorporated into the max wedge beginning in 1962.
Yeah. Those are my favorite Mopar motors. Is the 413, 426 max wedge.
Cyber Piston wants to know what's going on with the 63 Dodge Superstock that you did a video on.
Still sitting there as far as I know.
Oh, you did a video on a Superstock Dodge?
We have a guy that's only about 3 miles from here.
He's got Superstock Dodges?
He's got a 63 factory Superstock car sitting in his backyard, just rotting away.
Oh, wow.
It's not that guy across the street, is it? What were those cars that guy had?
Oh, no, he doesn't have any max wedge Dodges.
Yeah, he's a few miles from here.
Is this an aluminum fender car? And all
No, it's still fender car.
I was gonna say, man, I'll go over there and
I offered at one point. I says, let me get the car up off the ground. You know what I mean? I said, whatever it takes, I'll pay for it. You know what I mean? I just want to preserve the car. I said, it's good where it is. Leave it alone.
See, my dad and his friends. Well, my dad had a gas station when I was a young kid, and he had 2 of his friends worked with him at the gas station, and they had got an old Mr. Norm's 63 Dodge. But it was a 383 car, but it was a prepped car for like class racing.
Okay.
And that sucker was a good running motor, a good running car, right? And that's what I think of is like stuff like that. You know, that's 63 Dodges are, I mean, they're
ugly, man. They're ugly. They're ugly.
But they ran good.
Dickie Farley wants to know what's up with the Kiwi build.
Nothing. I got to get a hold of him. We've drifted off into opposite directions because we're both busy doing our things. We'll get back together again soon.
Hey, speaking of that, what's up with the Gambler?
From what I understand, there's all sorts of fighting with that club and that runs the Gambler and the people who own the land that they do it on.
They're splitting off and going separate ways. And
I don't know. We're going to build the car anyway. I don't know if the goal is now going to be just the Gambler or just to build a really fast dirt car, because that's.
Well, they still have. I mean, there's still other races like the Gambler around Tennessee, so
yeah,
you could easily participate.
Oh yeah.
Want to put a Buick in it?
No. I got 2 motors for that car. One of them is just a regular kind of 383. That's gonna and I'm also gonna I got a stroker for it too, dual quad stroker. So so this way, regardless of what we're gonna use the car for. Just go play around in the dirt, overlanding and shit like that.
I'll tell you something that I've always wanted to do. So when I'm a gearhead through and through, anything that rolls or goes, right?
Right.
And I have often thought about how to wreck the perception of things are dead. Okay. And what I mean by that is that back in when the economy crashed in 2008, NASCAR teams started doing this thing called start and park. You remember that? Have you ever heard of that?
I heard it, but I don't remember what it was.
Okay, they'd buy a car and they'd run a motor for like, say, 10 laps.
Okay.
They'd start the race, run 1 lap to qualify for money, park the car, take the payout cash, whatever it was, 20,000, 15,000, whatever. And I'm like, what if you build a NASCAR car, a start and park team, and then didn't park this sucker? And you build it with, like, say, a Chevrolet small block from AutoZone, and put it in that sucker. And who cares you didn't start and park? But now you're passing all them start and parker guys, right? And you've got a car that costs $10,000 instead of $100,000, right? And they couldn't throw you out because you had a stock small block Chevrolet that technically is more stock than
more than legal,
right? Well, I came up with other ideas for that same scenario. What if you built a Baja 1000 truck in your garage, and your idea wasn't win Baja 1000? That's unobtainium, right? It would cost $1 billion to do that, but you finished the race, right? You be the guy that finishes the race, and now you're a legend amongst men.
But that's the kind of things that I want to do with that car.
I think that would be kick ass. I think just go down and finish Baja, you know?
I agree with you 1,000%. But like I said, that's why I have two motors that I call. One of them is a basically stock 383.
Right.
And then the other one is going to be a nice horsepower stroker, because like we have like the Georgia Mud Park, like only about 75 miles from here.
Oh, really?
Right?
I didn't know that.
So there's a lot of places where you can compete. You can go fuck around, you know what I mean? And so I want a high horsepower motor for doing that sort of thing.
Right.
And I want one that, like I said, you could go overlanding with it.
Right.
And you know,
yeah.
So
one of the coolest things that I think I came up with that whole thing was going to Bonneville. Bonneville at 200 miles an hour, you're in the 200-mile-an-hour club.
Right.
Right. You don't have that fastest car out there, but you know how easy it is to go 200 miles an hour with just junk you built in your house? It's actually not that hard, right? You put a whole bunch of nitrous on something that's you're willing to scatter, and you go out there and you give it the beans until it either scatters or it runs 200 miles an hour.
Takes a lot of horse. I mean, well, it depends on the aero, man. It depends on what you're pushing.
I was thinking you take something that's already see, and here's the thing nobody thinks about. You know, like my T-Bird race car, it's an '88 Thunderbird, right? Well, that car was originally designed from the factory to run 200 miles an hour at Talladega. That's why they were capable of doing that. So all you need to do is find a car that had the engineering behind it to do that to begin with.
I agree.
And you could go out there and run those numbers without the big dollars and big horsepower.
But even with moderately good aero, right? You're still talking about like the difference between going, let's say, 195 and 200.
Oh yeah, you're like
it's
100 horsepower.
It's like 100 fucking horsepower. You're like, oh, it's only 5 miles an hour. No.
Yeah.
No.
Once you get to that point, it's like what did they call it? George in the Navy, it was it's a bell curve, right? Is what it is, but logarithmic scale.
Yeah.
Is what it's called. So you go up one point, and at the beginning it might only equal 1 whatever, but when you go up another point, it's then 3, and then you go up another point, and it's 6.
Right. That's mile an hour is like that. I mean,
exactly.
Like you look at like the Bonneville guys, what the soul fire, the dry lake guys.
Right.
Okay. I mean, what they do is so intense. Forget about the mile an hour. It doesn't make any difference how fast they go. They go 350, they go 450 miles an hour, whatever happens to be. No. Fuck, that doesn't really count. That doesn't matter. What matters is they're doing that while spinning the fucking tires.
Right.
Right? It's like you're pushing wind at 300 or 400 fucking miles an hour.
Right.
Okay? You've got 2,500 fucking horsepower, right? Screaming away $8,000, and you're putting it down on the ground on fucking on slippery ground on narrow fucking tires.
This is why I thought
that's like the miracle of the ages that these fucking things work at all. I couldn't imagine trying to fucking drive one of those cars and actually keep it.
Yeah. And then we talked about this the last video, I think, was I thought it'd be kick-ass to have like Danny Thompson or something come on the live feed, right? Because what Mickey accomplished, there's no way to ever downplay that, because in what, 62 he ran 406, or is it 64?
Yeah,
it was 62.
I think it was 62. We've got George Poteet, who's a Bonneville record holder.
Right.
He's over here in Mount Juliet.
Oh, no way! I didn't know that.
Yeah, we actually have a connection. I'm going to try to get together with him and do a whole thing on his land speed stuff.
He's the speed demon guy.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Yeah. Well, cool.
Oh, I love that kind of shit. I love that.
I'm sorry. We got distracted and forgot all about this stuff.
No, we're good. Guns and Gears wants to know, is the 170 lighter than the 225? Any other differences other than the stroke?
It's overall a smaller package. You know, it's got a shorter deck, of course. It's got a smaller crankcase, actually. It's lighter by virtue of the fact that it's got the shorter deck and all of that. But that's not the reason I want to use the 170. I don't want to talk about the 170 now. I don't want to talk about it for a while. I just want to get my hands on the actual material so I don't have to think about finding it anymore. So but yeah, I have some really intense plans for a 170.
So you scrolling through here, lots of talk about motor swaps, unorthodox motor swaps.
Oh, hey, that's right up our alley, right?
Well, yeah,
you guys, yeah.
talking about putting a 2-liter EcoBoost in the back of a Fiero.
That could be a plan.
Well, I saw a lot of people talking about the 3800s too, which normally people put in the back of the Fieros, but I'm gonna get back at those LS swapped Mustangs. Let's see.
Dead air.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah, there's lots of stuff going through, but some of it.
What time are we at? How long have we been doing this?
We've been at this for an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Sweet.
We'll go for another half hour.
Well, good. I'll get a cold one, and then we'll take some questions. Does that sound good?
I'm always up for more questions.
All right, guys, I'm sorry. I'm really trying to get through these questions, but it's skipping
all right.
around.
No, that's all right. I had to do it last time while we were trying to talk about stuff, and I'm over there reading. It makes it almost impossible.
Let's see. We got Red Rider. Well, see that one. Wants to know, what would you recommend doing to increase the horsepower of a 225? Looking to add some bite to my Dart.
Biggest bang for the buck on slant motor?
Biggest bang for the buck. Biggest bang for the buck on a slant motor. That's a damn good question.
That might be something worth like checking out.
Yeah, I think the biggest bang for the buck is probably a Super 6 and a big diameter single exhaust. I mean, yeah, like a 2.5-inch exhaust all the way through, Super 6 intake with that BBD 2-barrel, and you're going to add an honest 35-40 horsepower to the motor. I think it's your biggest bang for the buck. You know, without digging into the motor and going crazy.
Bruce W wants to know, if you're high in compression, how much horsepower do you lose approximately for every degree you knock it back?
Oh, good question.
Wow, and that would depend on what cylinder head, what motor.
Yeah, there's way too many variables for that. And what RPM are we talking about? Because remember, as the RPM increases, your need for ignition lead decreases. So let's just say you take away 2 degrees and you lose. I'm only going to use like throw numbers out, right? Like round numbers. So don't quote me, okay? But let's say you take 2 degrees out. You're running at 34 degrees and you bring it back to 32 degrees. You're going to lose, let's say, 20 horsepower under 3,000 RPM. You'll pick up to 20 horsepower over 5,000 RPM. So it's like you can't really go by that. It's not a direct correlation 1-to-1. You know, taking timing away and how much overall horsepower you're going to make. You could spin the motor to 20,000 RPM, let's just say, you'd only need 15 degrees of ignition lead or 10 degrees of ignition lead. So, you know, you think of it in those terms.
Let's see. I'm not sure what this means. I'm putting an 8V71 supercharger on a 460 Ford. What would you recommend? What else would you recommend to do? Port the heads and maybe a camshaft?
Oh, if you're putting a supercharger on it, I don't know.
Camshaft, yeah.
Oh, is it a stock motor?
Yeah, it's a stock motor.
Oh,
don't waste your time porting.
if it's supercharged or turbocharged, it's like almost, because you're forcing the air through, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to gain a lot, but camshaft, ideal for that combination, would make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. You want a supercharged specific camshaft. So call your manufacturers, various manufacturers, tell them what you're trying to do, you know what I mean, and get a camshaft that's specifically designed for a supercharged application. But I wouldn't waste my time on porting it.
If you got it apart, I think the smartest thing to do with that big of a blower, gap them rings up a little bit more. Like if it's got a stock, and he may be putting new rings in, I have no idea where. He didn't leave a lot of information there, so I'm assuming 460 out of a pickup truck and slap a blower on it, right? But you need to open up the gap in the rings.
Yeah, absolutely want to open up the gaps for the top ring gap, especially. Second ring gap is a good idea. But you definitely want to open up the gaps for boost, just like you would any other turbocharged or a nitrous. But a V8 71, have you ever seen one of those? That's like the old school blower.
It's 871, right?
It's a V8 71.
Oh no, then I probably haven't seen one.
Okay, so you know how I got a traditional roots blower, right? You've got 8 bolts that hold it down to the intake manifold.
Okay.
On a V-style blower, it doesn't have that. It has lugs on the side.
Oh, at an angle.
On an angle.
Oh, is that what was like on Detroit's and stuff
Yeah.
like that? Okay.
Yeah, the ones that we're familiar with, the regular blowers that we're familiar with are like off of
Flat-mounted.
inline engines, and they're flat mounted to the side, and we mount them on the top. The V motor, or the V series blower, it doesn't have bolts on the bottom to bolt it down to the intake manifold. It has ears has 2 ears on each side of the block and long bolts that come down like this and secure the blower. That's really old school.
I think it's cool.
Oh yeah,
all that stuff is really cool. Is that the neatest thing? Like I always seen like that was diesels. I never seen diesel application. You see semi trucks and all this and turbos. That's all you see anymore. But when you go to a marine application, being in the Navy, you see these marine diesels, and they'll have 2 superchargers. Like a 12 or 1671 blowers.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be 4 turbos feeding those superchargers, right? And it's like, well, I guess you can't detonate a diesel because they technically run that way.
You
right?
can detonate a diesel. Have you seen some of these?
I've seen them where they get the boost pressure so high they split the blocks in half.
They throw the block clear out of the truck.
You saw that Cummins one?
They toss it in the air.
It was like a couple rods on a crane
yeah.
spinning while the block was flying through
That
the
was
air.
awesome stuff. Hey, by the way, okay, the guy who's building the blown 460, right? Here's 2 things. I don't think anybody's going to. I'll tell you. Right? Use an 8mm belt. Don't use one of the bigger, the 12 or 14 mil. Use an 8mm belt, and also run that belt to the inside of the idler, not to the outside of the idler like you normally see. Run it to the inside of the idler. And that's because the 8mm belt is very much less harmonic. It's easier on the drive. It's easier on the crankshaft. It's easier on the whole bit. It'll soak up harmonics. The bigger pitch belt creates harmonics. They're good for drag racing. They're good for short fucking sprint, all out. But if you're building something to like cruise with, street strip type of thing, whatever, use an 8mm belt and run the belt to the inside of the idler, not the outside of the idler.
81 George.
Sure. Bad Tree Productions asked, what's the deal with the dual 2-barrel slant 6 intake? Seen one on the marketplace for $600.
That was, if I'm not mistaken, that started out as a marine manifold in the 60s. And they don't use 2-barrel. The factory didn't use 2 barrels. It used a pair of
1-barrel cars.
Yeah, 1-barrel BBSs. I don't know if they're any good now. I honestly don't.
Man, that makes me wonder, is it 1 barrel, like 2 1-barrels progressive linkage? That would be kick ass.
Yeah.
I always like the old stuff like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's neat. It's neat. It's definitely neat.
Red Rider wants to know, I recently took out the dashboard in my 74 Dart and the only wire connection was the ammeter. Do you know if that's normal?
What is it?
Took out the dashboard? Is that what you said?
Yeah. And the only wire connection was the ammeter. Ammeter?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think he's pulling maybe the whole dash out.
You pull the cluster out, there's one round plug that has 12 receptacles in it, and that goes to the printed circuit, and that runs all of your various gauges, okay? And then, except for the amp gauge, the alternator gauge, and that's going to have 2 wires on it. It's going to have a red one and a black one, and they're going to be held in place with 2 3/8 nuts. I don't know if.
Hopefully that helps him.
Hopefully that helps.
We got all the answers here.
I know too much trivia. I
was just surprised you do it. It's a 3/8 nut. You're going to want to use 3/8 nut, and then the plug's got 12 pins. Like, geez, man, how many of them you take it apart? That's how I learned that stuff.
Also, when you unbolt those wires from the alternator with the 3/8 nuts, hold the wire and you turn the nut. If you don't hold the wire when you turn the nut, you turn the whole thing and it breaks. Yeah.
See that, and that's the stuff you could take it apart. 1,000 of them, this kind of stuff.
Methuselah wants to know what the best year of 383 is to rebuild.
Oh, that's the steel crank ones, like 68, right?
Well, the 71 is the only calf crank year. They're all good, and there's no bad one. There's no bad one. If I had to pick, I think I would go with a 67 and down with a 516 head, closed chamber head. Use a flat top piston. I build a quench motor out of it. And the 516 head, don't forget about when anybody tells you, oh, the valves are too small. No, just a 516 head, leave that alone, build it a zero deck. So you want a 67 and down, 516 head, and you want to build a flat top motor, build a quench motor out of that 33, you'd be so fucking happy. It'd be the sweetest thing you ever put together.
I've seen some of them that like virtually a stock motor with a cam and an intake on it, run 11s.
Yep.
And I mean, they run good.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys want to talk about that. The new Tesla is going to have a cage to run stock because it runs 9s.
Well, I'll tell you what I know about the Tesla. I used to race in this organization out in Southern California. It was called Match Race Madness, right? And it was, they'd pair you up with a car that was equivalent to you. So here we are, Match Race Madness. Everybody's got like, it's virtually like a grudge race, a track. And everybody's getting times, and that's how they pair you. And it makes the racing tight when they do that, right? It's all whatever's on the tree.
But how do you know the guy you're racing isn't sandbagging?
You just give her hell, man. I mean, if you sandbag, you win a trophy. That's all you get. I mean, it's like, hey, dude, here you go. You sandbag the shit out. Here's your $5 trophy.
You mean you don't have a roll of hundreds and you're not?
No, oh man, give me a foot, you know. And,
Okay.
But
no paper bags full of cash.
There was a bunch of racers out there, a bunch. And this guy pulls up in a Tesla. And this car was running 640s in the 8th mile. There was dudes out there that had like 7.0s, and they were freaking like crying because they had, well, I mean, I don't know what the Tesla costs because I don't shop for a Tesla.
Right.
It's like shopping for a training bra for a dude, right? But there was a lot of guys crying, and it's
I'm sure. So they're going to put a cage in this thing?
I mean, NHRA rules. I mean, if it's a 9-second car, it's got a
yeah.
They had that. Well, I don't remember
what the factory. It's going to come from the cage from the factory.
No, it's not going to come with a cage. You're going to have to put a cage in.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Because it'll run 9s.
See, Tesla, right? You want to make a lot of fans. Actually, offer that as a fucking option, man. A caged car.
Oh hell yeah, that would be kick ass. Like Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon. Check it out, man.
Offer a Tesla option number P21 roll cage, bolt in 9-inch, or it'd be a 850
capable RC
and a parachute. The factory parachute option. Could you see that?
That would be kick ass.
It'd be a clean little. You probably wouldn't even see it.
Well, and see, this is the kind of stuff that where the American auto manufacturers, if they were to do stuff like this, they would probably sell just a few. And I know why, because they'd say, hey, our factory roll cage option is $9,000. Like, come on, dude, I can put one in my garage for $600.
If you want to win the hearts and minds of the American hot rodder, right, do that. Cage, parachute, the whole bit, and then sell that thing, and you got the instant ultimate status symbol right there.
All right, back old school. Mopar Man wants to know, is thinking about taking a stock 1 or 2 barrel cast iron factory intake and modifying it to run 2 1-barrel Carter carbs, one in front of the other for better flow on my Slant 6 225.
Yeah, I don't know if I would bother trying to make two more barrels on that stock intake manifold. They have available. You can find them the 2 single barrel intake manifolds. They're spread further apart.
I think this Offenhauser does those, right?
I'm not sure who makes them, but I've seen plenty of them, and I know that was a marine thing because the Super 6. What we know is the Super 6 was actually a marine manifold introduced in 1967, right? That 2-barrel. And then before that, previous to that, from the factory, I believe for marine and industrial application, they had a manifold and another 2 single barrels.
Well, hey, we're still having a slant race too while we got some dead air.
Oh, yeah, the slant race.
Yeah, is it Labor Day? Man, I lose my freaking mind here. When is Labor Day weekend? September, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Labor Day weekend, Jeffers Motorsports Park, Sykeston, Missouri. It's the Slanted Nationals.
Nice,
right?
Nice. We will absolutely be there.
Yeah, and it's everything Slant 6. So there'll be a regular program going on as well, but it'll be a meeting for Slant 6 cars. And there's going to be 4 categories. So it's your daily driver, right? So it must have street tires and it must be driven there and driven home. Okay. So if you show up whether on a trailer, you're going in another class. The other ones are hot rod, slant, which is naturally aspirated, hot rod slant, power adder,
Okay.
and then the super fast slants. That we're gonna go with the top 6 shootout, right? So it'd be like your Super 6. Maybe we should call it the Super 6.
There you go. It's called the
That is a kick-ass name.
Absolutely. So
But-
we'll be there running in the regular normally aspirated class.
Yep. And then that normally aspirated, you can have slicks, whatever, but and if you want to set up, a couple match races, we can probably set them up. That's what Shane Polito was saying. He wants a match race right?
That's going to be a lot of fun. I will that and we're going to the 318 Fest. I know you don't have a dog in that fight.
No.
But we're going to the 318 Fest.
Is it drag race?
Yeah, Jake's Dragway, May 17th. We'll be running Bottle Rocket there, and that's the 318 Fest. It's happening down there. So if you,
when's that? I'll give you a hand.
May 17th.
May 17th. I'll have to look at my schedule.
Okay.
And I'm thinking I could probably give you a hand for that one.
Yeah, it's only about 100 miles down the road.
They're in Georgia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alabama.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll rub some elbows there.
Yeah, this year we're actually going to go. Last year it was almost impossible for me to go out to the races. This year we're going to make a serious concerted effort to get our stuff out there and fly.
Sweet. And then I know you do Buffalo Valley, but I mean, you get up to since you're going to the Slanted Nationals, bring something else along, and you can run in other classes.
Or you I got one trailer.
Oh, well, I got one.
All right, well, we'll talk about it. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Adam Cheslow needs some help. He has a 352 FE with automatic will rotate if I jump the solenoid but won't start even if I squirt some gas on the car. What should I check next? New solenoid, coil, ignition switch, and battery so far.
Are you getting a spark when you crank it?
That's what I'm betting.
Do you have compression?
I would have to say it would have compression because it'd have to lose compression on all 8 cylinders to not, right?
Well, it could be a jump timing chain.
That it could be.
But if the distributor is rotating, okay. You know what? I'll tell you. You know what he's got? Your points are fuzzed over. Your points are fuzzed over. So you're cranking the motor. It sounds kind of normal, like it's got compression. It's not going wee. It's going ding, 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 like it's supposed to, right? That kind of sound. You got all of the basics, right? You probably don't have enough spark. You take a piece of emery cloth to your points and clean the points, because when points sit for any amount of time, let's say you leave a car sit for 2-3 years, if they're sitting with the points open, they fuzz over, right? So that when they're opening and closing, but they're not actually grounding the coil. So take a piece of emery cloth, clean those points off, and then give it a wrap and see what happens.
ATV just asked, is there a possibility of you ever building a nitro motor on this channel, and is it possible to build a nitro engine on a budget?
Hey.
Absolutely. We have that Belvedere that's in the backyard. That's getting a blown nitro motor. It was going to build injected, but I says, no, I'm going to do it, go all the way. It's going to get a blown nitro motor. It's going to be a small tire, stock suspension, car, blown nitro, match race car, your grudge race car. Yeah, absolutely. But you have to understand something about nitro. Okay, so I can't do that until I'm ready to go back to the sickness. Right? It's not something that you do casually. It's not something you do on a whim and say, oh, in my spare time, I'll put a blown nitro thing together. No, right? I have to be in the zone. I have to be mentally, physically, the whole bit prepared to go back down that fucking road. And I need a good support team. I need a good home team that's going to hold down the fort, because you're gone for days at a fucking time. And I need a good road team, people who come with me and do what they do. And I don't have those things right now. I have to cultivate all of that. So yes, absolutely. Before I fucking drop dead, I will burn nitro again, but it may not be for a couple of years.
And budget nitro motor, you can actually put nitro in almost any motor.
I have built budget nitro motors.
Well, I was actually kicking around the idea that 215, it's got 11-to-1 compression. I'll call carburetor. We'll put freaking 50% to the sucker.
We'll talk.
How badass would that be?
It's not as simple as you think.
Oh no,
it's not as straightforward as you think. We'll talk about it.
All right.
Let's see. Road to Revolution Family Values RTR 76.
Some name.
Yeah. DTHE heads. I don't know what that is. By copying. I don't know. I can't read this.
Oh, just skip ahead.
Okay. Well, not seeing any other questions. So wait, our scope said, I love Hondas too, if anybody agrees. Give it a thumbs up.
I think Hondas. I don't have one. You really don't like them?
I mean, they're reliable, but as a race car, I don't. But I've got my Focus.
I got a Honda, and it mows the shit out of my grass.
I like them because of the effort that I see these kids put into them.
Well, it's true hot rodding. To be honest with you, it's basic and simple
Sure.
hot rodding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Do I like them? Fuck no. Fuck a Honda. But
That's fine. I completely understand. I completely respect that. But when I see these 20-year-old kids with these Hondas, okay, I see me with a Belvedere or a Charger when I was 20 years old. You know what I mean?
Well, no, and don't get me wrong. I say fuck a Honda, whatever, but I mean the utmost respect to those guys, truly. And it's kind of like hey, I got Buicks, I got Fords, fuck a Chevrolet, right? So, but the Honda, I could never do that gig. Them guys are blowing stuff up left and right. And when you get they don't have a lot of part support. So they're going to the junkyard and getting parts. And this is exactly how drag racing and hot rodding was done in the 50s and 60s, right? You went to the junkyard, you got something, you blew it up, you went and got something bigger. And that's how, if you look at some of the gassers from like the early 60s or late 50s, they'll have a truck axle in it. You know why they had a truck axle? Because they didn't have a 9-inch Ford you could go buy that was ready to race, right? They'd use something that was
full
strong.
floating fucking, 2-ton truck axle.
Right, exactly.
But an eBay intake and a straight pipe Honda doesn't make it a race car.
No, and that's the problem I always found was like when I was cruising around the street with my street machines, these guys pull up and they want to race, and you're like, dude, I could literally go flatten all 4 tires and just smack you so bad.
Yeah, but I got something you just said there, right? We just said a straight pipe and an eBay fucking cold air intake don't make a hot rod. But let me tell you something, right? If you go back to when to the 70s, when I was a kid and I was coming up, okay? The equivalent of the Honda with those parts was like the guy with the Camaro, right? The 68, 69 Camaro. It had a 307 2-barrel in it, right? With a chrome air cleaner and a cherry bomb fucking muffler, and the thing was jacked up in the back, okay? And you say, well, it's the same guy, okay? But those are the guys that gave us the motivation to build faster cars to make them look silly.
Sure.
Right.
So I never would have had the motivation to start ripping engines out of this and put this cam in here if it wasn't for trying to make those guys look bad. And those kids today with the eBay fucking thing those are the equivalent. And those are the guys that give the ones with real ambition the reason to go out and build a faster car.
Right. I have no problems with those guys because they're the ones that's going to actually drive the hot rodding community in 20. The problem is that they don't make any more 65 Mercury Cyclones. They don't, right? These things are eventually going to get to the point where you can't get them and they're unobtainium. Right. And you're going to have to look for something else. Well, they haven't made anything similar to that since about 2002. Everything else has just been garbage. In my personal opinion, hey, if you're GM or if you're Detroit, wake the fuck up. You're building garbage, right? Where's the Nova with a 4.8 LS that you could go buy brand new? I mean, you got all the parts. Why aren't we making them?
Here's the thing, man. We're dinosaurs. We deal with old stuff. There's less of this around every day. You know what I mean? But let me tell you something. 100 fucking years from now, there's going to be a group of guys like this sitting around. No, I'm serious.
With Hondas.
Not even with Hondas. And they're going to be talking about rewinding the fucking armatures and using this fucking, this magnet and that. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, it's hot rodding is a
hot rodding is always going to be around. It's going to be around one form or another.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I pulled my uranium rods out a little bit further. That sucker smokes the tires.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What was it? The Mr. Fusion.
Yeah.
I put some beer in the Mr. Fusion.
And you know what? Whatever they're doing is going to make what we do now look.
Yeah, they're going to be like them archaic fucking hillbillies. What?
Yeah. They'll be running like 2.5-second quarter miles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in their daily driver. In their daily.
In their daily, exactly. Their grocery getter.
Yeah. I let my kids drive this one.
See, Red Rider Says, last time I was testing the electronics on my Dart, it seemed that none of the gauges worked. Only the right turn signal and bright lights came on. All the wires and bulbs were on it.
Oh, dude, that's a huge electrical issue.
Yeah.
Man, I'd check the grounds.
Yeah, it could be ground, a broken ground pin on that round plug. If it's just the only two gauges that aren't working are the gas and the temperature, there's a voltage limiter that plugs into the back. It's got 3 prongs that plugs into the back of the cluster. That could be bad.
I keep losing these questions.
Well, some of the mods are probably taking some of the questions out, because I've had people go on there and they'd say some horrible stuff and the mod pulls it off.
I've seen some of that too, but no, it just keeps scrolling when I stop.
Yeah, they'll come on there like, oh, I hate you guys tech night. Well, then why the hell are you on here?
Yeah, really.
I've only seen a couple get deleted tonight.
Yeah, well, that's we our mods, John Wilburn, Fubar, Ari, and Zero. Those guys are always on the case. They're always keeping everything run smoothly over here. They're awesome. I love them. We could not do this channel, without them. So they're on it.
Yeah, visit our eBay store at the AHRA. Yeah, AHRA eBay store.
My friend Jim Campizano, who was an old magazine friend of mine. We used to do magazines years ago. You know who Jim Campizano is?
I read a lot of his stuff.
Muscle Mustangs and Fast
Yeah,
Fords?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he was the editor of Muscle Mustangs and Fast Fords for I don't know, 20 years or whatever. And Muscle Mustangs Fast Fords came from Cars Illustrated, which is the magazine that I used to do back in the 80s. So Jim just started his new channel. It's called Muscle Car Campy. So definitely, he just put his first video out today. It's a 340 Barracuda. Guy. It's a cool story. The guy's owned the car since it was new. He bought it. He bought this car while he was still in Vietnam in the fucking PX store. They had a picture of it.
Yeah. We can still do that.
Yeah, he bought it new while he was over in Nam. Came home and took delivery of it, and he still owns the car today. So yeah,
What year was it? 70?
7340 Cuda. I watched the video just before that's why I'm late.
Oh,
that's why I'm late, because I had to watch Jim's video. So Muscle Car Campy. So please go over there, give his channel a look. Subscribe to it, like it, ring the bell, do all that other stuff. Jim is a great guy. The content he'll come up with, you'll see. He's like one of the true great automotive journalists out there. So
he was good at Muscle Mustangs Fast Forward. I really liked his articles.
Yeah,
he was
Muscle Car Campy.
The Road to Revolution Family Values, I think we wrote his question. 76 Dodge 318.
Okay.
Ported heads by copying you. Fresh rebuild with Edelbrock Performer plus cam intake carb. Will it make 250 horsepower, and would you recommend a Roots blower on it?
Yes, it absolutely will make 250 horsepower. A Roots blower, that's a big fucking step. That's a big step. I mean, it's apples and oranges. Are you building a blown motor, or are you building a normally aspirated motor?
The real question is, what's the goal of the car? That's always the main question, because I get people all the time, hey, should I do this and that? And what's the goal of the car, right? What are you trying to do? If you're just trying to have some good, fast, quick passes and you'd like to drive it to the track, put some nitrous on it. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde is like the easiest thing in the world. I love nitrous oxide.
Well, I'll tell you something, like a stock 318, you take it, there's a bone fucking stock 318. Put a cam in it, a blower suitable cam, bolt a 671 on top of it, spin it 10 over, and you have a seriously good blown combination. I mean, you got 500 turnkey pump gas fucking horsepower. So,
Jeez. How many pounds of boost? That'd be like 8 pounds of boost, 10 pounds of boost?
No, not that. Well, yeah, probably about that.
Red Rider with another question. Is there any way to test the limiter to see if it's broken? You took it out and it doesn't look physically damaged.
Yes, it won't look physically damaged. There's a little wire that's fucking wound inside of it. Just Google testing Mopar voltage limiter. There's 1,000 different.
Oh yeah, it's got to have an impedance reading on it.
Yeah.
If it's a voltage limiter, it's probably just a resistor.
Will the stock suspension in a 1969 Lincoln survive the blown 460?
Jeez, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm assuming, yeah. Send it.
Yeah,
Send it.
Send it. I mean, really, what else can you do, man? Put it together and send it and see what happens. My guess is that it's not going to be a happy camper.
It'll be fun though. It sure as hell will be fun until it stops working.
Yeah, yeah. I would say the first time you hit that thing, right, make sure your teeth are clenched together because that thing is going to shake and fucking hop like nothing ever fucking happened before.
But there's drag cars out there that have stock suspension on them that run well into the numbers.
Yeah, but they're not luxury cars.
No,
That's a luxury car suspension.
You guys, that's the neatest thing. The Buick guys have gravitated because it's hard to find Grand Sport like a Skylark anymore. So look at like a big Electra. Yeah. And they'll go drag race an Electra, and you want to see something that twists up. And oh gosh, man, all that weight. And then it's got, of course, your couch driving down the road suspension. So,
hey, it's been 2 hours now.
Yeah.
What do we got? We got any good last licks here?
Doesn't look like it.
Did you guys have fun tonight? I enjoyed this.
It's fun, just a bullshit session with a little bit of tech thrown in.
Yeah.
I'd really like to get back to some hands-on stuff, but it's crappy weather.
It's fucking winter. It's winter. This is good enough for us right now.
Yeah, and I want to see more Trudy chicken burnout videos.
Yeah, many chicken burnout videos to come. So, guys, that's it. I think we're gonna call it a night, right? So, you have anything you want to plug?
No, I don't do anything.
Okay,
I just work.
Okay.
Maybe I'll start a channel when I start building my Fiero.
So AHRA, American Hot Rod Association.com.
Online. AHRAonline.com.
AHRAonline.com. AHRAonline.com.
Visit our eBay store. We're going to have new merchandise here soon. I just bought a bunch of new stuff.
Oh, you need to have AHRA merch. You cannot be cool in the 21st century unless you've got genuine AHRA. Accept no substitutes,
Yeah, and we found that if you put the AHRA Shield decal on something, you can automatically sidestep the clutch in your automatic car.
There you go.
So that's how awesome it is.
Yep. And Muscle Car Campy, go help him get off to a good start. Okay, leave a comment on his video and let's get Jim going here. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody contributed super chat. Thank you very much. We'll be back with our regular Sunday night show. I'm talking to me over there, and I'm not talking. See, that's so fucking weird. There you are. Okay, so we'll be back with our regular Sunday night show this Sunday night, 7 o'clock, and
that's it. I guess
that's it.
Yeah, we'll see you next week for another tech show.
John, Aries, Hero, Fubar. Thank you guys.
What do you want to do next week?
Whatever they want. You guys, whatever you think a good topic of discussion would be, or thing that we could do here on our Wednesday night thing, leave a comment. Leave a comment. I usually take our Sunday night shows down, the lives. I usually take those down like the next day because it's like topical and yapping. You know what I mean? It's like we're not really doing. But this, I want this Wednesday night thing to be more of a kind of like regular feature that we'll leave up. So if you have any topics, any suggestions for things that we can do on this Wednesday night thing that you want to see maybe next week, leave it in the comments and we'll go through that and we'll pick the best topics or one that we can do or something.
Yeah, you want to have some fun? I mean, more than willing. We got some stuff and we can beat on it if we want to.
So that's it, guys. Thank you very much. Let's get out of here.
All right. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.